there was one way to like be beautiful in West Hollywood. And like around the world, there's many different ways to be beautiful, but in LA, there's like one aesthetic. And if you don't fit that, then it's not that you're ugly, you just are not that thing.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories that they created there, and the people that they used to know. Jeffrey Masters is the creator and host of the long-running interview podcast LGBTQ&A, and has interviewed such guests as John Cameron Mitchell, Laverne Cox, and Melissa Etheridge. Back when he was a baby gay, and after an earlier 3-month stint, he packed his bags and plonked himself down in LA, where he lived for several years. It was here that he was exposed to the world of West Hollywood, which is kind of like a gay Disneyland. And depending on who you are, you either got really excited or you winced at that description, which pretty much sums up the polarizing attitude towards West Hollywood. We caught up to talk about the lost space 11, the obliviousness of some human beings, and the shallowness of LA.
So I packed up and moved 2 weeks after graduation because I did not want cold feet, which is probably like on brand for me to like just like force myself to do things like that. And I moved to not West Hollywood. I moved to another neighborhood because I thought West Hollywood was like too gay.
Like a bit too on the nose.
Yeah. At that point, I did not own a tank top. Now I only own shirts without sleeves. Yeah, I just like it was a slow not transition, a slow acceptance of queerness and being like, I think it goes back to that, which I'm like being clockable in your queerness. And tank tops are just gay canon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, it's the assless chaps that get me in trouble. Otherwise, I don't think people could tell.
I don't wear those like to the grocery store though.
But why not?
It's a personal choice. Do you actually wear those in the summer around?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean...
Wow, I need to come to the UK. Amazing.
It gets a bit difficult when I'm on the train, there's leather seats. I get a bit stuck, but otherwise I'm fine.
Well, it's like I had to find like my like personal style within like queerness with also like what do I like and not like personally. I feel like we like try different trends and fads. And for me, I realized, I do like skinny jeans, but when it came to like shirts and sweatshirts, I think someone once described my style as like could be 6 months pregnant and like you could still like wear the same shirts that I wear. Like I'm in shape, but like I just don't like things that are form fitting. And so when I like bought form fitting things, I like didn't wear them. And it's like, oh, this is not about like gay or not gay. It's just about like what I feel comfortable wearing.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. And there's like that thing when you're a teenager and you realize you're gay and you see gay culture around you and you think, well, I either have to embrace this fully or reject it entirely. And you don't kind of recognize you can take the bits you want and leave the bits you don't.
It's all or nothing. Mesh shirts or nothing,
One of those weird tattoos that goes around your belly button or no tattoo.
Do you have one of those? Tell us now.
No, alas, I don't. I don't even have a tramp stamp. That's what I want.
Yet. We're young, yet.
Yeah, obviously. I'm going to get a tramp stamp. What do you think I should get? Maybe like a dolphin?
That's horrifying. I think tattoos are personal. There's a lot of bad tattoos in the world.
Yeah. And I myself have some bad tattoos, so I am in no position to judge. But this is reminding me of a time when I was in like my early 20s. I went to this gym that was full of like city professional type people. And there was this one guy there who was always really nice to me. So I figured he must fancy me. And he had this Tweety bird tattoo. So I was like, well, of course he's gay. But no, it turned out he was straight.
How did this come up?
What, that like he was straight?
Yeah.
Well, he invited me to his birthday party, which again, another sign that he's clearly in love
Oh.
with me. But no, his girlfriend was there.
You're not like in a sauna and he's like, why are you touching my thigh?
No, no, I'm not that bold. Maybe I would be that bold now, but I definitely wouldn't be that bold when I was in my 20s. Anyway,
Yeah. I've gotten bolder.
yeah, me too. And it's like I can always just cancel my gym membership, move to the other side of the country, and then like never see you again, right? No big deal.
That's why you moved continents the first time.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, let's get back onto topic. Let's talk about West Hollywood. So then you get there, you discover the area. How did the reality live up to what it was you were expecting?
Well, I think what I was expecting, I had a lot of fear back then. I was not as comfortable with my queerness then. I didn't have a ton of gay friends, which like now I only have gay friends.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I have an extremely gay life now, working in queer media, volunteering for queer organizations, different things like that. But living in LA that first summer when I was 21, I like avoided West Hollywood actually, which is funny because when I moved from LA 8 years later, I was living in West Hollywood and like going to these gay bars, 4 nights a week. But back then I avoided them. And so, I very clearly remember my first time going to the one with a friend and like being mesmerized by like men dancing together, which looking at my life now sounds like completely bonkers.
Can we just unpick that then, that avoiding thing?
Yeah.
Was it like I'm not like those other gays?
No, I don't think it was that. Hey, well, here's an example. Like Will and Grace was just like the biggest TV show ever in America, and we argue about how much it influenced things or not, but it did have an influence, right? And a lot of people saw queerness for the first time on TV on Will and Grace. And the way my brain worked, though, as a teenager was I'm not going to watch this TV show with a gay character because then people will know I'm gay. So I just kind of like avoided that. So I think me avoiding these gay bars and like the gay part of West Hollywood was a way of like protecting myself and not having to deal with like certain issues.
And what were those issues?
Some of it was intimacy. I avoid like easy answers. I think some of it was that because if I went to a gay bar and talked to a gay man, then I would need to date a man and that would like create more issues. It was just easier to like be gay, not in the closet, but not have to confront certain things like that.
Like become a fully practicing homosexual.
A practicing one, yes. I'm quite skilled now, but back then, my God. I think the other part of that fear actually at this gay bar for the first time was that I grew up in the South where overt displays of queerness was not even not accepted, it just was invisible. I never saw a man holding hands down the street. Like you would never kiss your partner in public. It was just completely everywhere. So like the fact that people in West Hollywood felt comfortable being public about their queerness was something like I almost didn't know like we were allowed to do.
And so do you remember then the first time you saw two men being intimate in the street?
I do not remember my first time saying that, but I do remember 5 or 6 years in holding hands with a man. It still does stand out to me every time I do hold hands with a man walking down the street as, oh, we're holding hands down the street. But I do remember like 5 or 6 years into living in LA, I was holding hands with a man who was like 10 years older than me. And like he was freaked out that we were holding hands. And he was like, we don't do that in this neighborhood. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. Like, it's actually, this is a very safe neighborhood and like this part of West Hollywood. And he was like, I'd rather not. And I was like, oh, how like the tables have turned there.
I find the whole holding hands in public thing really weird because on one hand I'm like, well, this is fine. I've got every right to hold this person's hand. There's no problem with this. But then on the other hand, it's like, oh, someone might be watching and maybe I should be looking out and extra vigilant. And it's just a bit of a head fuck. It's a bit exhausting, really.
Yeah. I kind of accepted my sexuality under the frame, and I do not feel this way now, but I accepted my sexuality early on as it's okay if I'm gay as long as nobody ever knows and like they can't read it on me. And and as long as I don't wear skinny jeans and things like that. And I got over that very quickly. But in West Hollywood, you could read queerness on people.
And it was probably like an extra level of confusing because it was this like unashamed queerness rather than this forbidden kind of hidden thing.
Yeah, so it was probably like extremely like helpful that I was living in such a gay neighborhood. Well, eventually I moved to West Hollywood from other parts of LA, but it was probably helpful to like help not force me out of the closet, but show me that like it's okay if you walked on the street and someone reads you as gay, that is not a failing on your part.
Yeah, yeah. Do those thoughts ever still enter your brain?
So I think that's a good question because the obvious answer is yes, absolutely. There are certain, like when it comes to gender, I'm most aware of my like manhood when I'm walking down like a dark street at night and it's like maybe unsafe. And I'm like, oh man, like let me put my shoulders back. Let me like widen my gait a bit more. And like I feel very protected by my masculinity in those ways. And also like, I mean, sexuality and gender are just like intimately intertwined. Like I think about how queer and presenting or not. Or if I'm like going to a party and I'm like dressed like a bit more femme, I'm very aware of like where I'm walking down the street to go home,
Yeah.
like after midnight in the dark. Am I a bigger target or not? Am I wearing like nail polish and like someone's gonna clock that? Or just things like that. So I think about it in terms of like physical safety actually, but not in daylight at all.
So help like paint the picture about West Hollywood. So for me, I've never ever been to West Hollywood, but in my head, it seems like it's kind of like stuck in the year 2000.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Just that like there's a very specific type of gay that's like clean and hairless and blonde and likes, you know, Kylie Minogue and Madonna and stuff.
So I'm like giggling at you saying that because I think that is 100% correct. There's you said nothing that is as a lie. And when I moved, I lived there for 8 years, so like it was just like how life was for me. But moving to New York now, I've been here for 2 years, and I see how much West Hollywood is like West Hollywood only. Whereas in New York, there's like 90,000 gay men and like 90,000 ways to be gay. If I want to generalize, in West Hollywood, there's kind of like the one way, and it's like what you named.
And so then, like, did you just have Stockholm syndrome when you lived there?
Yes. Like stereotypes exist because stereotypes exist, right? So like there's a stereotype of Los Angeles that every gorgeous person in every small town in America moves to Los Angeles. So it's just like one city of gorgeous people. And there is like some truth to that. But I say that to say that like I was trying to phrase this in a non like gross way, but when I moved to New York City, I was suddenly appreciated for other things because I don't fit into like the West Hollywood mold of like a hairless twink. It's like the slender, thin, no muscle or the big beefy muscle, and I'm like somewhere like in betweenish, right? But in New
But
York,
no one can
I
tell
found
because you're buried in oversized t-shirts.
my oversized shirt exactly. In New York, it's been a mind fuck because at 32 years old, I'm suddenly I'll say it. I'm deemed more attractive here. And it's really weird to be in your 30s and to like reevaluate how you are seen by the world. And I think that in New York, there's somebody for everybody. No matter what you look like, no matter what your body looks like, your background, there's somebody who's attracted to you in New York, and that was not the case in Los Angeles.
And well, so then when you were living in Los Angeles, was it just like, oh, I guess I'm just not attractive?
I never thought I wasn't attractive. If you think that, let me know. Let me know in the comments below. No, just kidding. No, I never thought I was not attractive, but I'm not a, I don't have a model face, right? I don't have the high cheekbones, whatever. And I don't care, but there was one way to like be beautiful in West Hollywood. And like around the world, there's many different ways to be beautiful, but in LA, there's like one aesthetic. If you don't fit that, then it's not that you're ugly, you just are not that thing. And LA is like the home of Hollywood and on camera. So like a lot of it is an on camera beauty for sure. But New York values like brains too and success and this and that. And LA is like a one industry town, and that is Hollywood. And if you don't work in Hollywood or on TV, you're kind of like useless. But in New York, they like appreciate other things like journalism, which I do.
And so was it like this thing where you accepted, I suppose, how people viewed you physically when you were living in LA, and then when you got to New York, that suddenly flipped on its head, and you were like, "Oh wow, I'm actually really fucking attractive, and people like me."
Yeah, or I'm more attractive than I thought I was. Again, like I never thought I was ugly by any means. So I'll tell the story. I had one guy I was dating. We dated for like about a year. And I was so curious because whenever I would meet his friends, he'd be like, this is the guy I'm dating. This is Jeff. He's really, really smart and really, really funny. And like, those are lovely characteristics. But I always thought it was like, he was like saying that, this is my insecurity. He was saying that to like make up for the fact of like what I looked like. you know and I was like, why does he keep emphasizing like my like brains, and like the truth is too, like if somebody like only sexualized me and like only wanted me for my body and like face, I'd be like, don't you think I'm smart, so like again there's like the pendulum I'm in the middle. But I was like, why does he keep bringing up like that? I don't think he was trying to make up for anything that I don't look or don't look like, but it just is so weird to live in a place and in your 30s and to see like how men have changed and how they respond to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. But what it's making me think of is that you're going to get to this point, right, where suddenly men of a certain age start calling you daddy. And that's really fucking scary.
Has that happened to you?
Yeah, yes. And I think like the thing that's most head fucky about it is that they're kind of, by saying that, they're putting you in a certain position and they're assuming a certain power dynamic. And you're just kind of like, oh, should I play along with this? Should I have fun with it? Should I reject it? What's going to happen if I do any of those things? And it becomes a lot to navigate.
And then do I have to always do that one thing now?
Yeah, am I a daddy? Am I a dom top from now on until the end of time?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think all of us are battling like the assumptions people make. But I mean, like being in the media, the thing I think about a lot is like, so I have a very successful podcast, and I've lately done a couple of stints on like MSNBC commentating, and sometimes I'll go out with a guy who like wants to like date that version of me, who is like poised and fun and has like jokes and punchlines and can throw out stats about like the HIV rate in the southern parts of the US and like all that stuff. And I'm like, well, that's a bit of a performance for on camera. And like at a date, I'm just trying to like get loose with this drink and like maybe cop a feel, but they want to be like entertained by like the guy they've listened to on the podcast the last 5 years. And I'm like, oh, like they don't understand like that's not a real person.
Yeah, and there's like this other thing. I feel like when I'm put in that position and people are like, oh, you're this, you're this, you're this. I feel like the pressure to live up to that. Like I don't just reject their expectation as something that's just unrealistic and not something that I'm ever going to do. I kind of try and play up to it and be this more heightened version of myself, which is just exhausting and actually kind of boring.
Yeah. And also, it's like, so at least in the style of interviews that I do for my show, I'm talking to like Pete Buttigieg, Laverne Cox, a senator, Melissa Etheridge, like a wide variety of people. But those are highly researched interviews to elicit something from the other person. And they're not like a two-way conversation like we're having now. Like they're not, it's not a, this is not a date, but like they're not dates, these conversations, right?
Wait. This isn't a date? What?
No, I can't reach the computer and feel you. If I could touch your thigh, maybe. But like people think like, they think all conversations are different if they don't like do this for a living. Or sorry, they think they're all the same if they don't do it for a living. So the fact that I spent like an hour in a room with Pete Buttigieg talking, they're like, did you hit it off? Like you're gonna get a drink after and like maybe like go out. I'm like, first of all, he's married. And second of all, like me asking about him serving overseas is not like the first date material, right? We're not building chemistry. I'm a reporter asking questions, like pushing back on certain things. Yeah, but sometimes people just like want that. They want that. And also people are wildly oblivious to how they come across. And I don't know, but that's a lot different tangent.
No. Let's explore this. You're moaning about people, and I enjoy when people moan about other people.
I think people don't know how they come across in the world with like when they say things, how they I was on a date last week and the guy was like, "Oh my God, I've just been talking the whole time. I'm sorry," and he kept talking the whole time. I'm like, and I was like, like the sociologist in me is like so fascinated by like his ability to like name the issue but not change his behavior to fix the issue, kind of thing. Or again, when I moved to New York City, somebody was like, who I knew just socially from Instagram. We met each other at a party, and I was like, "Hey, we've never met in person. I want to say hi." And he looked at me like I'd like done something wrong, and I was like, "Is it okay that I'm saying hi?" And he was like, "You are just so much more attractive in person." And I was like, "Oh, are my pictures not like attractive?" And he was like, "Well, I just never met you in person." I'm like, "Oh, so they're bad pictures." And then he like freaked out and was like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you." And I'm like, "It's okay." But I was like, "You kind of did offend me." But also like, like, why would you say something like that to someone's face?
I mean, it's kind of. I mean, yeah, okay. So you're a glass half empty person, right? Like, because it's kind of a compliment.
I'm not. I'm the glass is half full and half empty person. Like I can see the compliment, I can see the insult, but also more than that, I have like separation to like not actually be insulted, just to be like fascinated that someone would say that to another person's face. That's the more of who I am.
Yeah. This thing about people who prattle on about themselves and don't stop to think to ask you anything. I kind of like.
Yeah.
Kind of love that shamelessness. Like, I just don't get it. I'm really interested in other people's stories and finding out what makes them tick and what they're thinking. And so when other people are just so self-involved, it's kind of amazing.
It's the same people who like walk down the street and like stop on the middle to like look around at the buildings. And you're like, you're blocking the whole street. This is a big city.
I feel like, to be fair, this is probably a conversation that's only relatable to people that live in New York or London or some big city.
But yes,
I could talk
but also
about this
like
for hours.
But I think like even like when I go back to the South, like someone like walk into like a bar and just like stand in the entryway, and you're like, "Oh, excuse me," and they look at you like, "Why would you like? I'm standing here. Like, why would you ask me to move?" And it's like, "Well, you're blocking the entire doorway," and but they think you're just being like an a-hole.
Okay, we've kind of gone completely off topic, but before we get back onto it, I just want to say, what about those people that when you're walking behind them on the footpath or the sidewalk? That's the US, right?
Oh no, you're fine.
They just start to kind of drift slowly across the sidewalk, and so they're in your way, and then they're moving in your way, and then you can't go around them, and it's just really frustrating.
And oftentimes I think they're doing that because they're also on their phone texting. And then like that adds like a layer of like obliviousness where like they don't understand that they veered off and they're texting, like you've just run into them and they like are mad at you.
Yeah, I mean, just because I've smacked your phone out of your hand and it's smashed on the ground into different pieces, it's not like it's my fault.
They got what they deserve. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Come for me. Come for me, why don't you? Okay, so we need to go back to West Hollywood.
Sure.
So where were we? So you did this first 3 months in the city, and then you went away, and then you came back again. Did you come back as like a more fully realized gay?
I think I was 5% more realized, to be honest. And then
And which of the
I was
scales are you using to measure this change?
the one in my pants, the one inside my heart. I I lived in LA for 8 years, and I lived in West Hollywood for the last 4. So for that first 4 was me living in other neighborhoods and not adjusting to gay life, but just figuring out what my life would look like and how gay or not gay it would look like. And then around year 4, I moved to West Hollywood, and it felt like a no-brainer actually at that point. And from there, I just like met like the most wonderful queer people, and it just felt easy.
And so what is it like living in that neighborhood then?
West Hollywood is so walkable in a way that I love. So like I greatly love the fact of like being able to get drunk in a bar and like stumble home. Like I think that's like a luxury in life, to be honest.
Yeah, that's magical.
Yeah, and having friends in walking distance, um, walk to someone's house, like start your night off there, then walk to a bar, then walk to another bar. I also I did different experience than most people because like one of my best friends was a retired bartender. I mean, he's 28, not that old, but he used to be a longtime bartender in West Hollywood and then like left and did other things. But he knew everybody. So like that was so useful because we could get in any bar we wanted at any time we wanted and like more or less drink for free at like every bar because he was so beloved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so like on big holidays, like for Halloween, I think they attract in West Hollywood, like they shut down the street and for like almost a mile and they attract like 500,000 people, like a massive to do. So for events like that, bars know that they can like charge a massive cover and like you'll wait in line for 2 hours to go to the same old bars you go to the day before. And so like with my friend, we cut to the front of the line, get in and go right to the bar and like get great alcohol. So like that was just like kind of like a special for me personally that most people didn't experience.
And so do you feel like, oh, I am the shit when you get to cut in line, or do you feel guilty and try to avoid eye contact with everyone around? And can you guess what my response is based on the way I framed that question?
Yeah. I don't feel either of those things. I feel like this is a fact of life. And it's about who you know and who you don't know. And by chance and coincidence, I know the person who's getting into this bar for free, and I'm with him.
Yeah, I think it's probably the British queuing thing that's so like deeply ingrained in me and I can't shake it.
Yeah, and like as an American, there's always somebody jumping a queue, and so this is like a place to like get drunk and party and dance. It's not like something actually important, so I have no problem doing that.
Yeah, okay, fair. And so why was it 11 out of all the bars in West Hollywood that you wanted to talk about?
I think because it was my exposure to West Hollywood and my first glimpse into queerness and like the like possibilities for my future.
And so then what did that space show you?
I think it was the like feeling of being in a gay space and not just one where like people were gay, but people were like practicing their gayness, as I think you said, right? They're dancing together, they're holding hands, they're making out, and it showed me that that was like allowed as a queer person in the world.
And so do you remember hearing about it closing, or was it just one of those cases where it's there one day and gone the next?
I heard about it because my friend who was like the bartender in town talking about it, and then it was a big deal that Flaming Saddles from New York had bought the place. This bar had changed hands quite a bit though. I think there's always like that one like venue that just can't make it, and my assumptions are that it's like a bad design, and so every bar comes in and they just kind of like rebrand the bar but don't like redesign it, and so like the bad bones are just there each time.
Is this a
And so
feng
like for this
shui
one
kind
space,
of thing?
well, kind of, but also like here as an example, like you walk in, there's a massive staircase, there's a massive dance floor, and then up the staircase there's another dance floor. There's so much room, and so it's lovely that they can pack the place in. But when it's 50% full, it looks like only 3 people are at the bar because it's
Yeah.
so massive. And so the smaller bars look full. So like on a Friday night, you don't want to go to the dead bar, you want to go to the exciting bar. And so even when it was exciting and like almost full, it looked dead. And when a new bar takes over that space in West Hollywood, they just put a new sign up. They're not moving a staircase. They're not like revamping the whole place. And so I think that those design flaws just kind of like stuck around for each new iteration, unfortunately.
And then, so for you personally, when you found out that the place was closing, were you upset or were you just like, meh?
No, I'm a realistic person, and like unfortunately, gay bars close all the time, and restaurants close, and it's a hard business. And so it, I wasn't, I didn't have, I'm kind of like a realistic person. It was just like a fact. It wasn't like good or bad.
And then, so looking back on it now with hindsight and a few years behind you, how do you feel about it?
I'm okay with it. A lot of my like favorite bars like didn't make it in the pandemic too. You know, a lot of my like favorite restaurants in the world have like closed. It's just I think just how business works. And, like hospitality is a hard industry.
Yeah. But is there any nostalgia that we could mine here?
It's my nostalgia is more for West Hollywood on the whole, and not one bar actually. I think that that is when it comes to like the lost spaces, right? I think West Hollywood is changing and becoming. There's a straight route that has taken over actually on the strip. There's a new restaurant called Bodega Louie, which is just like almost like fine dining. And then with the Lisa Vanderpump from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills has a bar there called Pump. And then a little bit down, there's another bar. This corner has become straight. And I think it's going to start bleeding into West Hollywood more too. And also, it's right near the Abbey, which is like one of the highest grossing gay bars in the world. And if you're a local, you don't go there because it's more or less just a tourist trap. And it's like a place for like girls to go celebrate their bachelor party or bachelorette party and like gay men have fun. And you take your friends there if they're in town, but you don't go there if you're a local. And so West Hollywood is changing and it's becoming less dirty. It's becoming more clean. Like the fun dive bars that are just like so fun to like sit in a dark corner on like a sticky leather stool. Those don't exist anymore. And so my nostalgia is for how like the city's changing, how the vibe is changing, how it's becoming like more gentrified and cleaner. And I miss like the weirder, like nastier parts more as opposed to just one bar.
And is it that those weird, nasty bars don't exist in West Hollywood anymore, or is it the whole of LA?
I think you're right. I think it's both. Both. Yeah. In the pandemic, we lost Gold Coast, which was a dive bar as well. I think it was there for like 25 years. And this was, I mean, I say this fondly. It was like a bit gross sometimes, you know, like a sticky floor. Here's an example too. We have Foo Bar, Fubar. It's like not near the strip. It's down more. And on Thursday nights, they BFD night, which is big fat dick night. And you go in the back room, and
And
they
that
would
was the
take pictures.
lesbian night, right?
No, no, no. I wish. They would take pictures of your dick if you wanted to. And also women could take pictures of any body parts they wanted as well. And they would print these photos out and they would hang it on the wall with clothespins on like a line. And you'd vote for like the biggest, fattest dick. And that person would drink for free that night. Like
How is
those,
that settled by a vote, though?
a vote?
Yeah, like how are you deciding what the biggest dick is? Surely that's just a fact.
I think that like, that's a great, this is such a, I mean,
I'm
this
overthinking
deep
this.
reporting, I
There's-
love
there's
this, Kay. Oh my
inches,
God,
there's
journalism.
girth, there's-
I think when you're looking at, oh my God, this is so funny. When you're looking at like 5 massive cocks on the wall, printed off in black and white on like a printer, you can be shocked at how different they look.
Okay, all right. I'm a bit of a stickler for rules. I like to know how
Well,
the
women would
process will
also
work.
do their breasts too. So we call it BFD, but like women would do breasts. So like it'd be all body parts. Some men would do their butts. So like you had a lot of options beyond just dicks. It's called inclusivity. But that kind of bar to still exist, I think like is what keeps these places like that's what I'm nostalgic for. Those bars are dying off around the world, you know, but I'm just happy that that can still exist in like, LA for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's kind of like one of the things that I really miss living in London. And like, it's really hard to run a bar. It's really hard to run any kind of business here. And so if you don't have a business plan, if you don't have lots of investment, if you don't know exactly what you're doing to bring in 300 people every evening and spend a shit ton of money, then you just can't survive.
Yeah.
But I grew up in a city where there were all of these people who were like, oh yeah, I fancy just opening a bar and I'm just gonna get some furniture from the op shop and I'm just gonna see what happens. And then that kind of gives that space and that creativity and just lets magic happen.
Yeah.
Let's happenstance happen and happen. And yeah, it's just really wonderful. Those kind of silly, grotty bars where anything goes. And I love those.
Yeah. There's a lot of those still in New York, which is why I'm like pleasantly surprised to like find them still. I also think that like I deeply love LA, But I think that when you visit Los Angeles, it's really hard to stumble into a really cool bar or like a really cool party. But in New York, you can walk down the street and you can just like discover a cool ass bar anywhere you go. And so that is because you're walking on the street. You know, in LA, you're driving. So in LA, you drive to something. And in New York, you get on the street and you just walk and you hit something awesome.
Oh, that's really interesting, that kind of discoverability of places that doesn't exist in LA. Okay, so to round us out, let's get all cheesy. If you could go back in time and you ran into that Jeffrey who first showed up in LA and didn't really know what he was doing and didn't really know who he was, what advice would you give him?
Would he listen to my advice is the question? I think that I would just say, like, take your time, and it's fine to take your time and, like, to, like, come to anything and everything, like, at your own pace.
So then, like, would he listen? What do you think?
No. I deeply trust myself and my own judgment for things. And so, like, when I decided to move to New York City, my friends were like shocked, like, why are you moving? Like, yeah, we didn't know you wanted to move. You didn't talk to us about this. And I was like, yeah, I wanted it to be my choice. And if this was like the biggest fuck up of all time, I wanted it to be my fuck up and not me being mad at Kay because he told me it was a good idea. And so, but I've listened to myself, no, probably not.
That's a really interesting perspective. So are you saying that, like, in terms of big life decisions and changes, you don't want to be influenced by external sources?
It's not even that I don't want to be influenced by external sources. I don't think it's possible for me to be influenced by them. I think that is a core part of my personality. I think it's like my biggest like flaw and like victory of like my life. There's people that I trust for sure, but at the end of the day, I trust myself actually very completely. Yeah, like I laugh when I see people on social media posting pictures like, I have a mustache. Should I shave it or leave it? Let me know. And I'm like, oh, I don't give a fuck what anyone really thinks about my appearance. If I want a mustache, I'll have one. If not, I don't really like need like to crowdsource for people to vote on it.
Yeah, but do you think that is really what they're doing? Because that's not what I think they're doing.
I think some.
Okay.
I think it's like half and half, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to sound like I don't respect authority and I think I have nothing to learn. I think I have so much to learn, but I've increasingly learned in my life that to trust myself. And it's usually when I don't, or when I listen to somebody else for like these big things that I like find myself frustrated.
Yeah, but there's a difference between like considering someone's advice and then blindly following someone's advice, right?
Yeah. I just think I'm a smart person. I'm always right. I think that I trust myself because I know that if there is a massive issue or fuck up, I will be able to fix it. And I'll be fine.
Do you have any memories of West Hollywood or clubbing from your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, please get in touch. I want to create the biggest online record of people's memories and stories. Go to lostspacespodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space and tell me all about what it is you got up to. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Lost Spaces Pod. Follow Jeffrey on Twitter on either his personal account, which is JeffMasters1, or his podcast account, LGBTQ Pod. And make sure that you listen to the LGBTQ&A podcast wherever you stream podcasts, maybe the platform you're using to listen to this right now. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I have been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming year. You can hear the first single, which is called Well Groomed Boys, and is playing underneath my talking right now on all good streaming platforms. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on your podcast platform, or just told people who you think might be interested in giving it a little listen too. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.